Yeah. So again, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our visitors, and welcome to the BBC who are here recording our meeting today. We're not expecting a fire alarm, so if you hear the alarm go off, please use the doors behind you to exit straight out down the steps and into the car park at the far end. And please make sure your mobile phones are on silent or turned off. Thank you. And the first item on the agenda this afternoon is apologies for absence. Mr. Wyand.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. We've got apologies this afternoon from Councillors Taylor, Bonham, Jackson, Rake and Dommett. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. In the light of the Chairman giving his apologies for this Council meeting, it is necessary to appoint a Vice Chairman for the duration of this meeting. Do I have a nomination? Councillor Abbott.
I'd like to nominate Councillor Jonathan Hawkins.
Very happy to second, Chairman.
Seconded by Councillor Thomas. Are there any other nominations? If not, would you please show if you are in favour of Councillor Hawkins being Vice Chairman for the afternoon?
That's clearly carried for that motion. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hawkins, would you like to come and join me? Thank you.
Thank you, members.
Item 1 on the agenda is the minutes. We have one set of minutes to approve as a true and correct record, which is of the full council meeting of the 25th of July 2024. I take it people have read the minutes. Would someone like to move that these are a true and correct record?
So moved.
Councillor Hopkins, seconded by Councillor Hodgson. Let's start again. Proposed by Councillor Hopwood, seconded by Councillor Hodgson. All those in favour, please show.
Thank you, Chair. That's clearly carried for approval of the minutes. Thank you.
Item 2, urgent business. I have no urgent matters to raise. Item 3, there should not be a need to divide the agenda with exempt information. Item 4, declarations of interest. I invite members to declare any disclosable pecuniary interests, other registrable interests and non-registrable interests, including the nature and extent of such interests they may have in any items to be considered at this meeting. Any members have anything to declare? I have asked the legal officer, as one of the items, as one of the motions concerns the heating allowance, and some of us are pensioners. This is a matter that touches those of us who are pensioners. I just like the legal officer to give an assurance that we do not have to declare an interest.
Thank you, Chairman. I can give such an assurance.
Thank you very much. Business brought forward by myself. I'm sure the council were joining me in wishing Chairman well. He has had a problem with an eye, one of his eyes, so he joins me as having eyesight problems at the moment. And I'm sure in his absence, he would like me to thank members who attended the recent civic service in Modbury, which was a very good occasion. And very much appreciated, and remind members that the chairman is in the process of arranging a Christmas dinner in December. I think it's December the 11th in Yampton, and if you'd like to come to that, please make your interest known. Item 6 on the agenda is public question time. We have one public question received in accordance with the procedure rules. And that is from Mr. John Grocock. Mr. Grocock, welcome to the meeting this afternoon. Would you like to read your question, which is on the screens?
So in June 2023, how many households liable for paying council tax were not doing so? What measures were taken to address this, and what number are currently not doing so?
Thank you, Mr. Grocott, and I think the leader is going to respond. Councillor Brazil.
Yes, thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Grocott. So, some technical details here. So, in June, how many households were?
Could you just hold on a second? There's a ringing sound at my end. I don't know if it's affecting anybody else, but it's quite annoying. Let's see if I can perhaps move my screen. That might stop it. We try now.
How's that? Is that any better? Yes. Yeah. Okay. So in June 2023, we had 46,537 properties subject to council tax. To that. That includes households who are liable but may have nothing or less to pay due to council tax reduction scheme discounts and exemptions. And those, we've just done one of those, has come through the executive just the other day. If you want to check on that, we have a collection rate of 98.4%. Which is in the top quartile nationally. So the vast majority of people who are liable to council tax and pay and should be paying us do pay us, and we do very well because of that. Since appointing a dedicated head of service for revenue and benefits in September 22, the focus on firm but fair recovery action has been sharpened. This applies to both in-year and prior years, so people who haven't paid in the past, prior years arrears. Once the council has obtained a liability order from Magistrates Court for non-payment of council tax, there are various enforcement remedies available to the council. In all cases, we prefer to engage with residents to make a payment arrangement. However, this is not possible for the council. If it's not possible for the council, we will consider other options such as attachments of earnings and attachment of benefits orders. Cases will only be sent to enforcement for collection as a matter of last resort. I hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you. Sorry, there is no opportunity for a supplementary question.
I know there is. I'm just answering.
Well, you're not allowed to, I'm afraid.
That's sufficient for me, I believe.
Yeah, if you feel it's not sufficient, you're very welcome to write in, and we'll make sure if you want further details, we'll ask. If you write in, we'll ask the appropriate officer to respond. Yeah, that's okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for your question. Item 7, an update on the resolution from our last council meeting on the motion relating to South West Water. And who's going to provide this? Councillor McKay, is that you?
Well, I can, but I know
Or
Bonham was sort of
Councillor Bonham's not here this afternoon.
Oh, isn't he? All right.
Okay. So Councillor McKay, and I'll ask my vice for the moment to respond as well. Can I just let members know that you will be allowed to ask questions, but there's no opportunity for debate on this. It'll only be questions if there are any.
Okay. Well, I mean, we had a meeting of the group of people who were involved with the motion and decided that we needed to gain some expertise and consult to make sure that we had some proper questions to put to South West Water, both in at the ONS and at this possible summit, which I believe is being organised for October sometime. Now, I still don't have a date. I don't know if Steve Mullen might be able to update us on that, but there's, I believe it'll be October or early November time. I have also been in touch with a group called the Sewage Scrutiny Group, romantically named, and but they have quite a range of expertise in their number. One is an environmental lawyer, another is an engineer, etc. So they are working with me. I am also undertaking to look at the accounts. I believe that the letter that came back from South West Water contained rebuttals with regard to the amount of dividend that's been paid, etc. My feeling is that, and those numbers were taken from what I thought were authoritative papers on this subject. So I felt that we need to go back to basics, and I have been looking through with a colleague who is a chartered accountant, going through all the accounts going back to 1989 to determine exactly where the monies have gone and when dividends were paid and retained earnings, etc., etc. And with a view to being able to challenge directly and authoritatively South West Water when we come to quiz them. The other thing that I've been doing is looking at the outflows across the region, across the whole of the southwest. That is their patch. There are about 100 rain gauges operated by the Environment Agency. That data is readily available on a quarter hourly, 15-minute basis. I've been collecting and collating that data with the outflows that are close to those particular rain gauges, with a view to coming to a determination as to the fragility of the network, and also to be able to challenge them on so-called, a bit of terminology that seems to have entered the lexicon, dry spillage. So where there's been no rainfall whatsoever, but they're still pumping out crap. So that is the state of play, basically, I think.
Thank you, Councillor McKay. Councillor Hawkins, you're one of the members for the ward that was most severely affected. Perhaps you'd like to add something.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to wish our Chairman, Bernard Taylor, a speedy recovery and hope he comes back to us as soon as possible. Thank you, the members, for voting me into this position for this afternoon. We have got our overview and scrutiny meeting on the 17th of October. The main issue will be this motion and the issue of South West Water. We have got two directors of South West Water attending that meeting, one responsible for the drinking water and one for the wastewater sections, two separate directors. As a ward member, there's 3 ward members for the Dartmouth Kingswear area, which have been affected by the crypto issues. That will be discussed, but the main issue will be to listen to South West Water and get to see their plan for the next 12 months and actually hold them to account to actually achieve that plan in the year ahead. Every member has the opportunity to raise questions at that meeting. Amelia Bolter will be asking all members and parish councils of the South Hams to bring forward questions that we can raise at that meeting on the 17th of October. So that we don't have duplication, because the meeting could obviously take a very long time. That's why we want questions before the meeting, and that's why we want the questions from the parish councils as well, so that we can feed that in and feed that into the South West Water representatives. I would just like to thank everybody that's helped us with these meetings over the last couple of months, particularly Steve Molyneux and Amelia Bolter for her help as well. And please ensure that you raise your questions for us so that we can have a very productive meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. As I indicated, there's an opportunity for questions, but please keep them brief, because as you've heard, there'll be an opportunity for longer technical questions at the overview and scrutiny meeting in October. Councillor Yardy.
I speak as also one of the ward members for Kingswear and Hillshead. I attended the September the 12th South West Water meeting in Brixham. There were more than 200 attendees. The press were denied access. There were many questions asked. The South West Water declined to answer the questions on technical details because they said it was legal privilege. And that applied to nearly 10,000 different valves that they have buried in fields across the region. It's unacceptable that they use that as a defence to not reveal information that is vital for public health. Second of all, it was quite clear that they have poor communications because there were some very confused and poor communications relating to how they managed the event and the news that this outbreak was taking place. And finally, their system for compensation is utterly disappointing. They are spending more on paying the lawyers than on or just as much paying expensive lawyers to defend compensation cases, when they actually should be just paying up and allowing those that have suffered as a result of the cryptosporidium outbreak to access those funds that they need. So it was extremely disappointing. I would like to say that don't expect that you will get a great deal from that particular meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Yardy. Questions, Councillor Hodgson?
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm just looking at the letter that they sent back that's in our papers. And the third paragraph, the bottom line says, I want to reiterate that dividends are not made at the cost of greater investment. When at the beginning of that paragraph, they talk about 3.2 billion nominal in dividends paid in that period. Now, I think 3.2 billion could have gone a long way to improving the infrastructure and investment in that. And I would like that to be a question that we all kind of bear in mind when they come to that meeting. I hope to go to that overview and scrutiny. But I think that contradiction that's there is the contradiction. Unfortunately, and as Councillor Yardy's just pointed out, you know, they're behaving very much like what we've seen with the post office, all these public services that have been privatised. It's like they'll spend more on the lawyers than they will actually on the common decency and making compensation for things that have gone wrong, and just coming up with endless excuses. I think I hope this comes back into private ownership, but in the meantime, I think they've got some questions to answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Councillor Penfold?
I'd just like to make a note made, as it's not included in our current papers, and thank Officer Darrell White for sending the letter to Devon County Council with a motion highlighting our request for a review of the impact and damage to local infrastructure by South West Water. At this point, we've had no response from DCC, but we eagerly look forward to a response as soon as possible from DCC.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Mr. Chair. On the screen, there is a proposed recommendation. The papers before us do not indicate whether or not what happens after the meeting on the 17th. I'd like to think that once Overview and Scrutiny Committee have done their job and scrutinised carefully the issues that come out of the meeting with the representatives, that the next step be for that committee, and I'm saying this is a request from full council, to report back to council with its recommendations for council to consider. I think it needs to not just finish at that meeting. I think the next step is a report with recommendations coming back to this council to consider. So I'd like to put that forward as a proposal. I have a seconder. Councillor Penfold is prepared to second that. So I would ask that you could consider that, Mr. Chair.
I'll just ask Councillor Hawkins if he wants to say anything about that.
We certainly don't intend to leave it on the 17th of October. This is an ongoing process. We started this a year ago, as you remember, and this is a long-running process that will continue. I said that we will be asking for their plan for the next 12 months and how they intend to improve that. And in 12 months' time, Overview and Scrutiny will again have them here to actually hold them to account. It's a very, very important case.
Will you be bringing it back to the next full council?
If that's what the council wishes, yes.
With that assurance, do we need to take a vote, or are we all happy that the chairman of Overview and Scrutiny will make sure it comes back to council? People happy with that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor McKay?
Yeah, I mean, I think the ONS meeting is important and might have a bit of a niggle for South West Water, but the important meeting, I think, is this so-called Water Summit, which will involve Devon County and Environment Agency and Rivers Trust and other people. And I don't know whether Steve Molyneux can update us on when that might be.
Where's Mr. Molyneux?
I'm over here.
Over there. Hello, Steve.
Hello, hello. Thank you, Chairman. In terms of dates, I know that East Devon District Council, which are organising this on behalf of Devon, have now polled chief executives and leaders for suggested dates for the summit. So I expect the date to come out shortly, and as soon as it does, I will advise members when that's going to be and what representation each council will be able to take to that meeting.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Councillor McKay? Obviously, yes. If nobody wants to add, we'll move on to the next item, which is member appointments. Group leaders have been invited to provide their nominations to the role of Devon Building Control Partnership Committee substitute member. In so doing, I can confirm that Councillors Carson and Hancock have been nominated for the one position. And we'll do this by a show of hands and in alphabetical order. So would members in favour of Councillor Carson for this role please show?
That's 9 in favour of Councillor Carson. Thank you, Chair.
And all those in favour of Councillor Hancock please show.
And 16 in favour of Councillor Hancock. Thank you, Chair.
So Councillor Hancock is appointed as our substitute member for the Building Control Partnership Committee. Thank you both for putting yourselves forward. Moving on to item 9, which is reports of bodies. The first is overview and scrutiny of committee of the 27th of June. Councillor Hawkins to present.
I'd just like to present the minutes of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee meeting, which was held on the 27th of June 2024. I don't think there's anything really extra to add from what I've already said earlier on.
No, that's
I don't
fine.
believe.
So we note those minutes. Thank you. Move on to Audit and Governance of the 25th of July. Calling Councillor Nix to present these, and there will be one recommendation to vote on. Councillor Nix.
Do you want to do the recommendation first or the minutes?
If you present the minutes and then go on to the recommendation, please.
So I'd like to present the meeting minutes for the Audit and Governance Committee for the 25th of July to be noted by the Council.
Are we happy to note those minutes? And now your recommendation.
Chairman and the rest of the Council, since the Audit and Governance Committee made its recommendation, the Government has announced that the Procurement Act 2023 will not be coming into force on the 28th of October as we expected. The Act will now be enforced on the 25th of February 2025. As the contract procedure rules that are the subject of the recommendation were drafted on the basis that the Act would be enforced at the end of next month, I would like Council to agree that the revised contract procedure rules will take effect on the 25th of February 2025 or such later date as the Act is brought into force. In the interim, the existing contract procedure rules will continue to apply to any procurement undertaken by the Council. Accordingly, I move the recommendation of the Audit and Governance Committee with the words to take effect on the 25th of February 2025 or such later date as the Procurement Act 2023 is brought into force. And I'll ask for a second from Councillor Dennis for that.
Councillor Dennis.
Yes, very happy to second that.
Pretty straightforward and clearly explained. Are members happy to vote in accordance with that? If so, please show.
That's 25 in favour and therefore carried as amended. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Nix. Next is the Development Management Committee minutes from the 1st of August 2024. Councillor Long.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move the minutes of the meeting of the Development Management Committee of Wednesday, the 1st of August, for noting. Thank you.
Yeah, these are for noting. The next item, the executive on the 19th of September. Leader.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, happy to move the minutes for noting for the executive on the 19th of September, and there is a recommendation we will come to after they've been noted.
Are we content to note the minutes of the executive? We are. That seems unanimous. So we'd like to present the recommendation, please, Councillor.
Yeah, the recommendation, and Mr. Grocott might be interested in this. This is about our council tax reduction scheme for those most in need. I'll leave it. I don't know if Nikki, if you wanted to say anything about it.
Thank you, Leader. I just think we are in a severe cost of living crisis. It's not going away, and this is going to help those people most in need.
Agreed. So anyway, and I'm very happy to remove those recommendations.
Will you just repeat them for us briefly, please, Councillor Bissell?
So the council will be recommended that a local council tax reduction scheme for 25-26 be adopted as set out in the presented agenda report, and delegated authority be granted to the head of revenues and benefits to agree the uprating of the working age regulations incorporated into the local council tax reduction scheme, in line with those published by the Department for Work and Pensions. That's quite a sentence.
So we have that proposal. Do we have a seconder?
Second, Chairman.
And Councillor Thomas has seconded. All those in favour, please show.
That's unanimous. Thank you, Chair.
Move on to item 10, which is questions on notice. We've received no questions from members. And item 11, motions on notice. We received 2 motions. The first motion is from Councillors Hopwood and Hawkins. And I'll call at this stage on Councillor Hopwood to move your motion as outlined on the screen.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to make an amendment to this motion before I move it, please. And I think Darryl is just putting it up now. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. I'll move the motion.
Thank you. And do we have a seconder?
Second.
Second, Councillor. Councillor, pardon me. So, Hop, would you like to debate?
The Levelling Up and Regeneration Act of 2023 amends the Local Government Finance Act 1992 to give billing authorities the discretion to charge additional council tax of up to 100% on dwellings which are occupied periodically, substantially furnished, and where there is no one is resident for council tax purposes, i.e. second homes. In February 2024, South Hams voted to charge an extra 100% council tax on second homes, as essentially the key impact of these houses is that a significant number are removed from the local housing market, with some of these properties suitable to provide permanent homes for local residents, being used as holiday homes by people whose primary residence is outside the district. I want to see the Devon County Council portion of circa 6.48 million ring-fenced and spent on affordable housing or associated infrastructure to enable delivery of these homes in the South Hams District Council area to help those who cannot afford to buy their own home. And therefore, those who have been brought up in the South Hams can live and work in the South Hams. Sites that come forward for affordable housing are often harder to deliver because of the road infrastructure needed, and the money would go a long way to hopefully delivering more affordable housing on sites that at the moment remain too costly to develop. I have recently been given sight of a letter sent to all council leaders in Devon by the leader of Devon County Council, more or less saying that Devon County Council will not commit this extra money to affordable housing, but use it to repair the highway and transport network. As the responsible authority for roads, Devon County Council have a statutory obligation to maintain the highway in a usable condition, so need to look within their existing budgets to find this money and not use the second homes council tax money. I would never, in February 2024, have voted for 200% council tax on second homes if I thought for one moment that Devon County Council would not ring-fence their allocation of the money for affordable housing, as this was seen as a way of second homeowners helping those who cannot buy a home in the South Hams, not to punish them for having a second home. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Hopwood.
If I could come in later, please.
Open to debate. Would anyone like to speak?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to Councillor Hopwood for bringing this motion. In a broad way, I completely agree with you, and I think many members of this chamber will as well, that the money raised from the second homes tax should be spent on housing. What has happened, and I too have seen this letter from the leader of the county council. What the county council is doing is a betrayal of people of Devon, quite frankly. They have a opportunity to address what they have declared as a housing crisis, and they have decided not to. However, I do have a couple of issues with the proposal as written. Firstly, it's my understanding, and I'm sure the leader will be happy to expand upon this, is my understanding is that the leader and the chief executive of the council have been working with districts across Devon to negotiate with Devon County Council on this matter, and the position has been that the money should be spent on housing, not that it should be ring-fenced for housing, not allocated to particular local authorities where that money is raised. And I think it's important that this chamber supports the leader and the chief executive in those negotiations as they continue. I would further add that as we are talking about Devon County Council and Devon County councillors, you, and there are 4 of you in the room, you have an opportunity, you have a say, you have a vote on this. And I know others of you aspire to be in Exeter representing us at county, and you will have a say on this as well. So I say to you all now, pledge now and in public to vote against the budget of the county council that does not agree to spend this money, to allocate this money to housing. So that's my amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Hancock. Do we have a seconder? Who would like to speak on the amendment? Councillor Hodgson.
Not for 1 minute would I be not supporting this, but with regard to point 3, you can't ask people to do predetermination. So it's, you can say that you would hope that people would be as part of this council would be supporting this if they also sit on county council, but you cannot ask people to do predetermination. It's one of those. I'm pretty sure I'm saying it applies to this as much as it does to planning and other decisions, because we have to have an open mind when we go into a meeting and be prepared to listen to any evidence that's brought before us, so we make the most open view. We can't sort of start pledging our vote. But beyond that, I do support this, because I was actually going to say it should be allocated to housing, and I think it's a very good motion, and I think the amendments fit. But I would just take up number 3 because I can't agree with that.
Thank you. In view of your concern, we'll ask our legal officer to advise us on that point.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I have to agree with Councillor Hodgson. Effectively, those who are county councillors will have to approach the budget. I know it's a rare occurrence. We'll have to approach the budget with an open mind, and it'll be for them to make that decision on the basis of the facts as they know them at the time they're called upon to vote. So I agree with Councillor Hodgson. That's twice I've said it.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr Fairburn, I'm going to look at you as I say this. I am predisposed to think kindly of Councillor Hancock's remarks, but I will, of course, make my mind up upon listening to the full arguments at County Hall. But Councillor Hancock, I am predisposed to like what you say.
Yes. In order to try and seek some compromise on number 3, rather than to pledge, could I suggest that the mover of the motion being asked to replace to pledge be encouraged to vote against any budget that does not allocate second home tax money rather than pledge?
Are you?
Yep, that's fine.
I think that is tautological in being asking and then be encouraged. I think you could solve that by putting encouraging at the, or encouraging or ask as the first word and leaving the rest of that phrase out. Which would you prefer, Councillor? Encourage or ask? Ask. So, and then we delete be encouraged because that is just repeating what you're already being asked to do. Can we remove the be encouraged, Mr White? To vote. Are you content with that, Councillor Hancock?
Yes, I'm content.
The second, are you content with that, Councillor Hancock? Does anybody else wish to speak? You have the right to reply to nobody else. Oh, sorry, the leader wishes to say something.
Yeah, if I may, thank you. I'll just speak on the amendment. First of all, can I thank Nikki for bringing this motion, and where I have much sympathy with the notion that that any money raised in the South Hams should be spent in the South Hams. I think that in a practical sense that it would be hard to persuade all 61 county councillors at county to support a motion which means they wouldn't be getting the extra money. They'll be getting their little bit, but not all of it. And I think if we go into a negotiating position with them, then it's given us an advantage as South Hams, as the council that is raising the most money, to be magnanimous enough to say, we will keep our money that we raise, our section, which is not small, but the rest of it, we are happy to see that invested across Devon, for the whole of Devon, for housing within Devon and all the vulnerable people within Devon. So and I think that we, from a pragmatic point of view, we're in a much better position to persuade other county councillors to support that line if we don't ring fence the money for us. Now that's an opinion that I have. It's what I've taken into negotiations as leader of the district council, to talk to other district council leaders. All the other district councils have supported us, and also to negotiate with the county council. And I think it gives us a position of strength, that we come at it from a position of strength. But I totally get it that people will say that it should raise in the South Hams, should be spent in the South Hams, and I have, and there's a part of me that would want to vote for that as well. Having said that, there shouldn't be an argument about whether it's spent in the South Hams or not. What it should be is an argument about whether the county, and I think, as David has says, having declared a housing crisis, having been part of the Devon Housing Commission, to then just betray the people of Devon by saying we're going to spend it by use a sort of sticking plaster over the potholes in the roads, which no doubt need fixing, but it's hardly an investment because you mend the potholes and the next month they need redoing again. This would be and a once-in-a-generation opportunity to invest tens of millions of pounds into the housing that we desperately need in the South Hams and Devon in particular. We do not have, we need it to provide housing for not only for local families, but also key workers. We as a district, as a county, are struggling with productivity now because people just cannot afford to live in the South Hams in particular. Our communities are being hollowed out by the fact that they are becoming retirement homes for people from upcountry retiring down here, and our young people and key workers not being able to afford to live here. So I'm thrilled that this motion has come forward. I'm also happy that David's brought forward the amendment, which I appreciate that not everyone will agree with, and people will vote against it. And I leave that totally up to individual councillors to, you know, see what you think's best. I think as a county councillor, and hopefully in a position of influence up at the county, and as leader of this council, have a stronger hand to get money for housing if we don't ring fence it just for the South Hams. But, you know, that's my view. Others may take a different view on that. But the main thing is that the county has got to spend this money on housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil. Councillor Hodgson.
Yeah, just a slight thing. I just wonder if we should be putting that as being allocated to housing provision, because otherwise we could just be replacing the windows in housing we already have, if you see what I mean. So it could be that, you know, if we have it just as housing, we could have housing trusts asking us for the money for maintenance of some of their properties. I think we should be, you know, making this clear. It's about providing houses. I don't know if that's being a bit pedantic, but it maybe clarifies it a bit.
I'm happy to.
That's the amendment.
It's an amendment. Are you, Councillor Hancock, are you happy to accept that?
I'm sorry, Councillor Hodgson. I think the important thing about county and housing is that housing cross-cuts a lot of things that county does, social care and public health primarily. Housing provision implies building of housing. Housing in general, for example, means retrofitting houses to make sure that they're warm for people. And I think that is something that I would hope that county could see the wisdom of investing in, given their enormous social care bill, that if they invested in the quality of housing, that they would actually see that investment pay off. So I take your point, I think saying housing provision implies the building of, and I think housing is much wider than simply the building of housing.
Okay,
right,
I was thinking it meant acquisition, but anyway, yeah, that's fine. If you're happy with it, that's fine.
Yes, would anybody else want to speak on the amendment? Councillor Thomas.
Only to say that I very much hope that Councillor Hopwood will accept this, because I think it would be great if the motion goes forward in Councillor Hopwood's name, because I think that would reflect the cross-party feeling in this chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor O'Callaghan.
Thank you. Yeah, just to echo what others have said, I feel that it's a betrayal, as someone else said, by Devon County Council of our residents. It's a very disappointing decision by them. You know, we have a housing crisis, as has been said, and we have one of the biggest gaps between low incomes and high house pricing in the country. So we need to get this money into housing by hook or by crook. And, you know, we have elections next May, and I'm sure the residents will make their own decisions in the county council elections next May after the county council makes decisions like this.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hopwood, in view of Councillor Thomas's comments, do you want to reply to that?
Well, I'm sort of going to twist this into speaking about the amendment, because I've got loads more to say when we get back to the summing up. So I'm listening to members saying that what's the words being used? Thrilled, brilliant, magnanimous, and that, and yet you're not going to. The leader says he's not going to support this motion.
No.
the amendment. I've got to speak to the amendment. Yeah. So I'm not over keen on the amendment, but if it makes life a bit easier, then I'll just accept it.
If you and the second are prepared to accept the amendment, we don't have to vote on that. We can then go on to finish our debate on this.
Accepted, Chairman. And
that becomes the substantive motion. And you'll have a chance to wind up in a moment, Councillor Hopwood. Does anybody else wish to speak before I come to the seconder? Everybody had their say. Councillor Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have great. I understand Councillor Brazil's comments, and I have great insight and thought of what you've actually said. The only thing I'm concerned about is that if we leave it to Devon County Council to spend the money and we don't allocate it to the districts that actually raise the money, then it's going to be an awful lot easier to build in, say, Newton Abbot or in Plymouth or in other districts than it is in the South Hams. And we have a huge housing crisis in the South Hams. And I think every penny that is raised in the South Hams should be spent in the South Hams, because we have communities, all of us, who are suffering and benefiting from second homes. We have to admit we are benefiting from the money that these people, residents, holidaymakers, etc., bring into our communities. But for probably, other than Councillor Long's area, representing an area like Dartmouth, Kingsware and Stoke Gabriel and the East Dart area, we have a huge amount of second homes. When you walk around Dartmouth or Kingsware, you can go through an entire terrace that's got one person living in it that used to have maybe 12 local small residents, reasonable house prices. You can go into Dartmouth and there is a terrace there just opposite Coronation Park, which I think have got 1 or 2 residents still left in them. But when I first started representing Dartmouth all those years ago, there were probably 5, 6, 7 people in there. And it's so important that we are providing social, affordable, but let's hope the government change the description of affordable, because it doesn't work for us in the South Hams, does it? So I think every penny that is raised in the South Hams needs to go back into the South Hams, and it needs to go into East Devon, it needs to go into North Devon. So that's why I think it's really important that we actually say that. It's a great shame, really, it's taken so long for us to be able to charge 200% council tax. You know, Westminster does follow, it appears sometimes, Wales several years after the event, but we could have had that money for many years already, doing exactly what we need to actually provide local housing for families. I'm going to just waffle on one bit more, if I may. We have got so many families that used to live in Dartmouth, but now live in Torbay, because it's the only place they can find a house that they can afford to live in. And probably Totnes has a similar issue. And it's really soul destroying when you see families that have lived in our towns for generations that are having to move into Torbay, or perhaps now even into Newton Abbot, or perhaps into Plymouth. But we need those families with young people and young families living in our communities. So that's why I really support this. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. And Councillor Hopwood, do you wish to come back?
Of course.
Oh, sorry, just before you do, Councillor Hodgson wishes to speak.
Just really on the substantive motion, I just want to sow a seed that, in view of what may or may not happen at County Council, and my experience is they don't very often agree with anything I put forward, so don't put your hopes on me. But anyway, we'll see. But what I was going to say, there is maybe a thought that we could, okay, maybe they end up with their share, but if we come up with something really interesting, an exemplar project, which we could ask to do with them in partnership. That might be a way of drawing that money back in our direction and giving an opportunity to show councils working across the boundaries together, as well as maybe some really interesting provision. And, you know, I've got an example that I will be sharing another time with the council about a group of young people I met with last week. And it was heartbreaking listening to them, young people in this area. So I think we really have ideally for me, it's actually a sense of a duty to a lot of young people and young families who do want to, you know, be part of this community. So I think if we can think a bit imaginatively, we might get all that we're hoping for here, even if it's might be a bit of a rocky road to achieve it.
Thank you, Councillor Hopwood.
Thank you, Chairman. So I just want to go back to something that Councillor Hancock said. He said something and it sounded like, but I may have this wrong, that the leader and the chief executive were happy with the money to go Devon-wide because that's the best they're going to get. Can you answer that first?
Yeah, can I just so what we did as we have a meeting of all the leaders of the districts, the city and the borough council within Devon, and we led right from the start on this thing and said that we feel that all second home council tax money should be ring fenced for housing, and we wanted all district and city and borough councils to follow suit. And the way we managed to persuade them that that was the right thing to do is because we actually said in that meeting, you know, we're not saying that every single penny that is raised in the South Hams through second-hand council tax should be spent on housing in the South Hams, but we are saying that every penny that is raised should be spent on housing in Devon. And as a result of that, we managed to persuade every single district council. And let me tell you, some of them have got a lot of financial pressures, but they were prepared to ring fence that extra money and then not only do that, but then to sign a letter that was then sent to the leader of the county council saying, you must spend all second home council tax money on housing. And they all signed it, and we were as one. So it would be very difficult for me personally, and anyway, it's been accepted now that if I then reneged on that by saying, actually, as South Hams, we're going to say that all the money's raised is just spent in the South Hams and not on. Now, maybe, Nikki, if you'd been the leader, you would have negotiated a harder position and actually got it different. But I just think that having negotiated that position with the other districts and the city and the borough in Devon, that it would be very hard for me personally to renege on that and say, well, actually, I'm not going to do that. So I have to say, even if your motion unamended had gone through, I probably would have had to abstain on it, not because I don't believe it should be spent on housing, but because I don't think I could have voted for it and then look all those other leaders in the eye and say, you know what, we've suddenly changed our view and we think we should keep all that money. But that's the position. But there is a part of me that absolutely 100% agrees with you that it should all be spent in the South Hams. But I think if we're to be pragmatic and if we are to get any of this money spent on housing at all, we need to take a more collegiate approach with all our fellow district, boroughs and city councils. So that in a very long-winded way is saying what David said when he said that we have been negotiating with other district leaders.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil. I hope that clarifies that for you, Councillor Hopwood.
I will continue. I have to say that as leader of South Hams Council, I am bitterly disappointed that that's your negotiation with Devon County Council. That's the first time I've heard of that. I didn't know and haven't been informed, and I don't know how many other members have been informed, that you have decided that the second homes council tax raised by, we have 4,000 second homes in the South Hams, and that second homes council tax of 6.4, whatever it is, a massive amount of money should be spent across the whole of Devon. How many other districts in Devon are going to be able to put that amount of money into the pot? None. We have the highest number of second homes, I believe, within the South Hams, within Devon County Council. and you are happy and you think you've negotiated a good deal by saying that it can be spent on housing, but in the whole of Devon, I think that's really wrong, Councillor Brazil. And I absolutely stand by what I'm saying now. In fact, I'm even more determined to take this further, because as a leader, you should not, without speaking to the rest of the members of this council, agreed such an important decision. That the agreement to charge 100% extra council tax was made by this council members as a whole, not by one individual. So I am bitterly disappointed.
Just before you move on from that, if I may, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, Nikki, and the fact that even with every single district, borough and city council within Devon writing to Devon County Council and saying, we are ring fencing this money for housing and you should do the same, Devon County Council have turned around and said, no, we're not doing it. If we had been split and some districts had said, actually, we're with Devon and we think we'll spend it on what we want or whatever, we would have been in even a weaker position. So whereas in an ideal world, absolutely it should be spent in the South Hams. And I took the view it was to be better to get some of that 20 million than none of it.
Absolutely.
And so that's the view that I took. So, you know, I understand, look, you know, maybe you could have done a better job, Nikki, and who's to say, who's to know? But that's the position that I took, and I hope that members, you know, will agree that that was the best position to have. But you know, and as I say, we shouldn't be arguing amongst ourselves here about whether it's. We should just be arguing that county spends that money on housing and not on its own pet projects.
Thank you. Councillor
And I completely agree with you, but I think we are giving the lion's share of the money, and it should stay within the South Hams for South Hams residents. And as for negotiating a settlement that gives that Devon County Council say they spend the money on housing, the letter that was sent to all district leaders, of which I now have sight of, doesn't mention about any of that money going to housing. It mentions potholes. So they haven't listened to you anyway. So you as Team Devon have negotiated a position, as you've said, that the £20 million will go towards housing, and they haven't listened to you. And I think this is a shame on district councils throughout Devon, and we really, really need, or shame for, district councils against, shame for district councils. And Devon County Council needs holding to account. I don't know how much higher this can go, but I will not be giving up on this. This is the start of saying, you may well have negotiated something, Councillor Brazil. You negotiated it without letting us know. But I am passionate about my residents, and though all those young people who cannot afford their own houses in the South Hams, we didn't raise the council tax by 100% to give it to the whole of Devon. We raised it to give it to the people of the South Hams. And I even am considering in the back of my head whether we should take this one step further and actually not charge 200% council tax, because we're not getting the money. So what's the point in charging it? And then if we go back to our original position of not charging second homeowners 100%, we are not, at the moment, I feel we're seen as if we're punishing them for having second homes. And that isn't how this started off. This started off charging 200% so they could make a contribution to a problem within the South Hams. If we can't keep that money in the South Hams, what's the point in charging it? I'll leave that one there.
Thank you. I think the Chief Executive would like to add something.
Thank you. So I think just a point of clarification, if I may, about the way in which council tax income works. The way in which council tax is collected is then redistributed on a proportional basis, the vast majority of which goes to Devon County Council. So when the decision was made by this council to set a premium on the council tax for second homeowners, a significant, by far the greatest proportion of that income was always going to go to the county council. The conversation with the districts was simply to encourage the county to ring fence that money for housing. Of course, it's their decision. So I don't think there was a negotiation about the housing as such.
Right, we've had a thorough debate. Councillor McCabe, Councillor.
I was going to invoke the procedure whereby we.
But if anybody has any doubt that helping Devon is helping us as well, it doesn't matter where the money goes, it's Devon. Are we crazy about this? South Hand, Devon. Come on, we're all in the same pot. If you help Devon, surely the South Hands will benefit as well. Sometimes you have to look at your neighbour.
I think I'm going to put this to the vote now because the mover. Thank you for accepting the amendment. We'll go to the vote. I'm finishing now. Councillor Hotwood has had her right of reply. So we'll go to the vote on the substantive motion which is before you, which is the motion as amended. Will all those in favour please show?
That's unanimous. Thank you, Chair.
Unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you for a good and thorough debate. On to our last item on the agenda, which is another motion from Councillors Nix and Hotwood. Call on Councillor Nix to move the motion on the screen.
Again, thank you. I'd like to move the motion as on screen for. Yeah.
Oh, I'd like to second it.
Thank you. Motion is moved and seconded. Thank you very much.
Sorry,
That's all right. So I will call on Councillor Nix to speak on the motion.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you are probably all aware, the Labour government is cutting the winter fuel payments to over 22,000 pensioners in the South Hams. This cut will cost pensioners up to £300 per year and will have a devastating impact on the vulnerable pensioners earning as little as £13,000 per year. This is during a cost of living crisis, which is obviously still going on, and the received threat of unit prices for gas increasing by 14% and electricity by 10% on the 1st of October. Standing charges will increase very slightly, and despite the general fall in prices since early 2023, typical bills under the September to December 2024 price cap will still be about 30% higher than in winter 21-22. Those on pension credits are still eligible for winter fuel payments, but this only amounts to approximately 1,500 pensioners in the South Hams. There is a possibility of an additional group of approximately 200 residents who would be eligible for pension credits. And our SHDC benefits team will be starting to take up this campaign to reach as many of those residents as possible within the next few weeks. So it's important to encourage those on low incomes and with savings below the £16,000 cap to apply for pension credits. 850,000 pensioners are eligible for the credit but don't claim it. 1 in 5 excess winter deaths are directly attributable to cold homes and 1 in 10 to fuel poverty. I'm extremely concerned as this policy unfairly affects those in rural communities, both in my own ward of Wembury and Brixton, as well as the South Hams district in general. Rural housing is more likely to be older and less energy efficient, with a significant proportion built before modern insulation standards were introduced. With over 70% of rural homes in the UK built before 1980 compared to about 50% in urban areas, rural houses have on average 49.6% energy efficiency compared to about 65% in city centres. Many rural homes are not connected to mains gas networks, with households often relying on more expensive off-grid heating sources like oil, wood or canister LPG. Around 1.5 million homes in the UK rely on oil for heating, with the majority located in rural areas. There is also a problem at the moment with delivery of those fuels because there's such a need for them. The heating oil in January 2020 was 54 pence a litre. It's now approximately 66 pence per litre on average, further straining the limited financial resources of rural pensioners. Public Health England reports a 1.5% increase in excessive winter deaths for every degree Celsius drop below 18 degrees, underscoring the critical need for adequate heating. The excessive winter deaths are a significant issue, with over 30,000 recorded in the UK each year, and a high incidence in rural areas where healthcare access is limited. In addition, that puts the additional strain on already stretched NHS services. Rural communities often face isolation due to poor transport links and limited access to services, and this lack of connectivity can hinder pensioners from accessing alternative financial support, energy efficiency schemes, or healthcare services. So these winter fuel payments are really important to these pensioners that are on the limit of their income every year. So with this in mind, I bring forward this motion to the Council today.
Thank you, Councillor Nix. Councillor Hotwood, do you wish to speak at this stage or later?
I'll reserve my right.
Thank you. Would anyone like to comment on this debate or join this debate? Councillor Hodgson.
Thank you. Some fellow councillors might be pleased to hear that this actually has already come through Devon County Council, and as, you know, to actually approach the council regarding, you know, the government regarding this pension loss. I think it's actually really important, because one of the things that I think often doesn't come into some of the considerations on this is that a lot of, you know, particularly very much older pensioners who may not be, you know, claiming tax credit and stuff like this, they actually might just be people that can't really, are very good at it. I mean, they didn't grow up in the digital age, and so they would be really vulnerable people that would be missing out on opportunities, and this just gets paid automatically. So I think it's a really important thing to just have that universal benefit remain. Thank you. So I'll be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Hodgson. Anybody else wish to speak? Oh, sorry. Councillor Cooper.
Hello, thank you very much. Obviously, this is about the party I'm a member of, but I agree with what Conference have done, and I will be supporting this motion today. Taking away a universal element of this is ridiculous. Like Councillor Hodgson has said, many older people aren't that savvy when it comes to claiming what they're entitled to, and I hope South Hams can do as much as possible to make sure that those pensioners who can claim the benefits which will entitle them to winter fuel allowance do claim it.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper, for explaining your position, and I know our officers do work hard to give us much help and advice, and hopefully that will be supported if this motion is passed. Councillor Thomas.
Thank you, Chairman. I say to Councillor Nix, thank you, because I think this is exactly the right notice of motion. My personal view is that universality is not correct, actually, for winter fuel. I don't think that my mum and dad should get a winter fuel allowance and then give it to my sister and I because they don't need it. You know, so I think actually what this is saying is politically sensitive, in that, yes, there is a party political aspect in that, you know, you don't represent the government in power, but at the same token, I think well, Councillor Hotwood, I didn't say that if the last government hadn't spent 46 billion on test and trace and PPE, you could have paid pensioners £300 a year each for the next 12 years without it costing any money. I didn't say that, Councillor Hotwood, but I wouldn't say that because you tell me not to look backwards, so I won't say that. What I will say instead is that I think, you know, it's exactly the right, notion. So, and I think we should all be supporting it. That's all I was going to say.
Well, that's a nice note of unanimity to end on.
You know, thank you, and yes, no, I'll support the motion, and also I'd like to pay tribute to Jenny, who's sitting in the corner, and her team for the work that they're doing, trying to get pensioners to sign up to it, because they do a fantastic job and they work really hard, and they're a credit to us. Can I just also say that I agree with Dan about the universality of it. I think it's wrong that we should be paying millionaire pensioners, and with there should. But the way that it's been done has been so cack-handed, and there are so many ways they could have done it differently. And perhaps if they just said, what we're going to do is we will devolve that decision-making down to the districts, as they do with the household fund, then we would have done it in a much fairer and better way, and the people who really need it would have got it. But it's another example of central government just doing a one-size-fits-all, and actually they should have more confidence in us as district councillors who actually know our people, and we see and we meet them when we're on the ground and we know what's going on, and we would be so much better placed to do it than they have done. But thank you, Alison, for bringing it. I'll be supporting it. You know, it's a lesson on how not to bring forward a policy, I think. That's quite a good example of how not to do it, but there we are.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil. Councillor Oram.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's important to point out that the Conservatives don't agree with the winter fuel payment. The Liberal Democrats don't agree with it, but even more devastatingly for the Prime Minister, neither does the Labour Party, as it turns out, who in the recent conference was actually a motion put forward, and the conference voted to tell the Prime Minister to reverse these cuts. So who are we to disagree with all the major parties? I think this is a very good motion. I thank Councillor Nix for bringing it forward, and I'm glad to say that I will be supporting it.
Well, on that note of harmony, does anybody else? Councillor Hopwood, you have a second a right to come back in at this point.
Thank you, Chairman. The leader said what I was going to say, that our council is absolutely brilliant at chasing up people who do not claim all their credits, and I think we're up in the ante on that as well, and we're actually trying to seek out pensioners who could claim different allowances and who don't, because, like I said earlier, this cost of living crisis is not going away, and £300 is a lot of money to lose when you're looking at paying your winter bills. And I know that they do get it in cash, so someone could argue that actually they spend it on food, they don't spend it on fuel. Well, so what if they spend it on food? They may not eat from one day to the next. Whatever they spend it on, it would be better if it went on their fuel, but what they spend it on, if they're that desperate that they need to spend it on something else. But I completely support this motion, and I'm sure that we are all going to support it.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I think we can see how this is going, but I think we'd better put it to the vote. So all those in favour of the motion, as on the screen, please show.
That is unanimous. Thank you, Chair.
A welcome note of unanimity at the end of the meeting. This does bring the meeting to an end. Thank you for your attendance. As I formally close the meeting, I'll just remind you that the next full council meeting is on Thursday, the 5th of December, and please make a note that it's in the morning at 10 a.m. Don't arrive at 2 o'clock because you'll have missed it. And I'm sure, Mr. White, would you convey the good wishes of all the council to